The jump coordinates were wrong. Commander William Adama knew it the moment Galactica's FTL drive spooled down and the shuddering ceased. 40 years of service, thousands of jumps, and he'd never felt one like that. Like the ship was being pulled through something resistant, something that didn't want to let them through. "Dratus contact!" Lieutenant Gaeta's voice cut through the CIC's ambient noise. "Multiple vessels, bearing... God, sir, we've got activity all around us." Adama moved to the tactical display, his weathered face impassive despite the knot forming in his gut. The screen showed their position. 193 ships of the ragtag colonial fleet scattered across what should have been empty space. But it wasn't empty. A blue-green planet hung below them, achingly familiar, impossibly present. "Is that..." Colonel Saul Tighe's voice trailed off, disbelief naked on his face. "Earth," Adama said quietly. "Or something that looks like it." But Earth wasn't supposed to have orbital stations. Earth wasn't supposed to have spacecraft. Primitive ones by colonial standards, but spacecraft nonetheless, moving in defensive formations. And Earth definitely wasn't supposed to be pointing what Dratus tagged as weapon systems directly at his fleet. "Sir, I'm picking up radio transmissions," Gaeta reported, fingers dancing across his console. "Multiple frequencies, some military encrypted, but..." "Commander, they're in a language that's close to standard colonial, but different. I think I can understand some of it." President Laura Roslin's voice crackled through the wireless from Colonial 1. "Commander Adama, what's our status? My ship is reporting we're in orbit of a planet that matches Earth's stellar cartography, but something's very wrong here." "Stand by, Madam President," Adama replied. He turned to communications. "Duala, open a channel, all frequencies, civilian and military bands. Let's see if anyone's home." Before Lieutenant Duala could respond, her console lit up with incoming transmission requests. "Sir, we're being hailed. Multiple sources, but one's priority military frequency. Someone who wants to talk right now." Adama straightened his uniform jacket. "Put them through." The wireless crackled with interference, then resolved into a male voice, clipped and professional with an accent Adama couldn't quite place. "Unidentified vessels, this is Stargate Command, United States Air Force. You are in violation of Earth's orbital space. Identify yourselves immediately and power down all weapon systems, or we will be forced to engage." Ty muttered a curse. "Earth has a space force?" Adama held up a hand for silence. "Stargate Command, this is Commander William Adama of the Battlestar Galactica Colonial Fleet. We are refugees fleeing the destruction of our homeworlds. We mean no harm and request permission to establish diplomatic contact." The pause stretched for 5 heartbeats. 10. Then, "Colonial Fleet? Commander, there's no record of any colonial expansion program. Please explain your point of origin and how you achieved orbit without our detection systems tracking your approach." In the background of the transmission, Adama could hear other voices, rapid-fire discussions he couldn't quite make out. This Stargate Command was as confused as he was, which was either reassuring or terrifying. "It's complicated," Adama said, choosing his words carefully. "We'd prefer to discuss this face-to-face. We have over 49,000 civilian refugees aboard these ships, many injured, all in need of resources. We're not invaders, we're survivors." Another pause. Then a different voice, older, carrying the weight of command authority Adama recognized instantly. "Commander Adama, this is Major General George Hammond, commanding officer of Stargate Command. Your situation is unprecedented. I'm dispatching unarmed shuttles to facilitate a meeting. But understand this. Earth has defenses you cannot see and allies you don't want to meet in combat. I'm extending an olive branch here. Don't make me regret it." Adama allowed himself the ghost of a smile. Whoever this Hammond was, he spoke like a military man who'd seen real combat. "Understood, General. We'll stand down weapons and await your shuttles. Galactica out." He killed the transmission and looked around CIC at the faces of his crew, exhausted, hopeful, afraid. They'd been running for so long, jumping from crisis to crisis, watching their fuel reserves dwindle and their people die. Now they'd found Earth, but nothing about this felt like the prophecies promised. "Sir, Gata said hesitantly. I've been analyzing the radio chatter and comparing it to our databases. Commander, these people, they don't know about the 12 colonies. At all. It's like we never existed. Maybe we didn't, Ty growled. Not in their history. Adama thought about the jump, the way space had felt wrong. The coordinates that should have been empty but delivered them here instead. Get me President Roslin, and find Captain Thrace. Tell her to prep a Viper squadron for Cap. Weapons cold but ready to go hot on my order. You don't trust them? Ty asked. I don't trust anything anymore, Saul. Adama stared at the planet below, so much like the Earth of legend, so impossibly different. But we're out of options. Whatever this place is, whoever these people are, they're our only chance. On the Dratus display, small craft were launching from the largest orbital station, sleek, angular vessels that looked nothing like colonial shuttles. They moved with purpose, maintaining careful formation as they approached Galactica. Somewhere in the civilian fleet, children were crying. Families were holding each other, praying to gods who might not exist in this reality. The Cylons had destroyed everything the colonies had built over thousands of years. Now, the survivors of humanity, at least the humanity they knew, were about to meet another version of themselves. Adama wondered which would prove more dangerous, the machines that hunted them, or the humans who'd never known they existed. If you want to see more epic crossover stories exploring what happens when different sci-fi universes collide, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a crossover you'd want to see in the comments below. More adventures across the stars await. Outside Galactica's hull, the strange Earth ships drew closer, and the fate of two humanities hung in the balance. The F-302 fighter interceptors maintained a respectful distance from the massive, angular warship that dwarfed anything in Earth's current arsenal. Major Evan Lorne kept his weapons locked but offline. Watching his HUD track the vessel, his instruments insisted was over 4,700 feet long, larger than a Goa'uld Hatak, but without energy shields his sensors could detect. Prometheus actual to F-302 wing, the voice of Colonel William Ronson crackled through his helmet. Maintain position. These people jumped in scared and confused. Let's not give them a reason to open fire. Lorne acknowledged and focused on the behemoth before him. The ship, Galactica they'd called it, looked like something from an alternate history, all armor plating and gun batteries built for slugging matches rather than the energy weapon exchanges common in Goa'uld combat. Dozens of smaller craft, sleek atmospheric fighters, orbited the capital ship in defensive patterns that spoke of military discipline. Whatever these colonials were, they knew how to fight. Inside Stargate Command's control room, buried deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, General Hammond stood before the briefing room's main view screen displaying the feed from Prometheus. Behind him, SG-1 watched with varying degrees of concern and curiosity. Sir, we've completed preliminary analysis, Major Samantha Carter said, tablet in hand. That Battlestar uses some kind of FTL technology we've never encountered. No hyperspace window, no obvious energy signature before appearance. They just materialized. Whatever drove them here punched through space in a way that shouldn't be possible with known physics. Nothing about this situation should be possible, Colonel Jack O'Neill muttered. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Lost colonies, 50,000 refugees, shows up on our doorstep asking for help. I've seen this movie. Usually ends with the nice strangers turning out to be Goa'uld in disguise. They're human, Colonel, Dr. Daniel Jackson interjected, adjusting his glasses as he studied translated text samples on his laptop. I've been analyzing their transmissions. The language is clearly derived from ancient Earth languages, Greek, Latin, with some structural elements that suggest parallel linguistic evolution. These people are definitely human, just not from here. Teal'c, standing with his arms behind his back, raised an eyebrow. The Goa'uld have seeded many worlds with human populations taken from Earth thousands of years ago. Perhaps these colonials are descendants of such slaves. That doesn't explain the technology, Carter countered. Their ships are too advanced for a civilization that started from scratch without gold or ancient tech. These people developed spaceflight independently, on a completely different technological tree from ours. Hammond raised a hand, silencing the debate. Speculation can wait. Right now, we have a fleet of refugees with enough firepower to level a city sitting in Earth's orbit. I want answers. and I want them before the Joint Chiefs start breathing down my neck. He turned to O'Neill. Colonel, you're with me. We're going up to meet this Commander Adama face to face. Oh, good, O'Neill deadpanned. Another awkward first contact. My favorite. The hangar bay of Galactica smelled of machine oil, cordite, and recycled air pushed to its limits. Commander Adama waited at the landing deck as the strange Earth shuttle, a sleek, white vessel with wings that seemed purely aesthetic, settled onto the deck with technology that didn't produce visible thrust. Chief Galen Tyrrell watched the craft with professional interest, noting the sealed hull and lack of obvious engine ports. Sir, that's some kind of anti-gravity system. No rockets, no conventional propulsion. Whatever these people have, it's way beyond our tech. Noted, Chief, Adama replied. Beside him, President Rosalind stood composed despite the fatigue lines around her eyes. Captain Lee, Apollo, Adama, and Lieutenant Kara, Starbuck Thrace flanked them, hands near their sidearms but not overtly threatening. The shuttle's ramp descended with a pneumatic hiss, and two men emerged in green military uniforms unlike any colonial design. The older man, gray-haired and carrying himself with unmistakable command authority, descended first. The younger man followed, dark-haired and sharp-eyed, scanning the hangar with tactical awareness. Commander Adama, President Roslin, the older man said, extending a hand. Major General George Hammond, United States Air Force, Stargate Command. This is Colonel Jack O'Neill, leader of our first contact team. Adama shook Hammond's hand, noting the firm grip. General, thank you for agreeing to meet under these circumstances. Circumstances being you appeared in our orbit without warning with enough ships to invade a small country, O'Neill said with a slight smirk. Not judging, just, noting. Rosalind stepped forward, her diplomatic instincts overriding fatigue. Colonel, General, we understand how this must look. Believe me, we're as confused as you are. We've been searching for Earth for months, following ancient scriptures and prophecies. When we jumped here and found a habitable planet matching Earth's description, we thought we'd finally found sanctuary. Months? Hammond repeated. Commander, you said you're fleeing the destruction of your homeworlds. What happened? The hangar seemed to grow quieter. Adama's jaw tightened. 40 days ago, our worlds, 12 colonies spread across 4 star systems, were attacked by machines we created. Cylons, sentient artificial intelligence that evolved, disappeared for 40 years, then returned with one mission, the complete extermination of humanity. In less than 2 hours, they killed billions. We're what's left. O'Neill's smirk vanished. Daniel Jackson, who'd accompanied them via second shuttle, paled visibly. Artificial intelligence? Sentient machines that turned on their creators? Sound familiar? Adama's tone was bitter. We made them to serve us, to fight our wars. We gave them intelligence, then treated them like slaves. They revolted, we fought a war, then they vanished. We thought we'd won. We were wrong. Hammond and O'Neill exchanged loaded glances. General, O'Neill said carefully, we might have a problem. What kind of problem? Rosalind asked, her political instincts sensing danger. Daniel stepped forward, his academic demeanor struggling with the weight of what he had to say. We've encountered artificial intelligence before. The Assurans, human-form replicators created by an ancient race called the Ancients. They're hostile, aggressive, and incredibly difficult to stop. If your Cylons followed you here, they can't, Starbuck interrupted. We jumped blind, random coordinates. There's no way they could track us through FTL. You said you jumped through some kind of anomaly, Carter's voice came through Hammond's radio. She was monitoring from Prometheus. Sir, if their jump drive intersected with an active wormhole or subspace instability, it could have created a temporary bridge between their reality and ours. If those Cylons have any kind of tracking technology, they'll follow, Apollo finished grimly. They always follow. The implications hung in the recycled air of Galactica's hangar. 2 versions of humanity, both fighting extinction-level threats, one from machines, one from parasitic aliens, had just discovered each other. Hammond's expression hardened into the look of a man making a difficult decision. Commander, President Roslin, We need to brief you on what we're facing in this galaxy. And you need to understand that Earth, this Earth, is not the sanctuary you're hoping for. We're at war with an enemy called the Goa'uld, parasitic aliens who pose as gods and enslave entire civilizations. More false gods, Rosalind murmured, thinking of the lords of Kobol. Very real ones, with very real fleets, O'Neill added. And they're going to notice 193 ships appearing in Earth's orbit real soon. When they do, things are going to get messy. Adama looked at the Earthmen, then at his own people, then at the planet hanging in the viewports, so close to salvation, yet infinitely far. General Hammond, it seems we have a lot to discuss, and not much time to do it. Agreed, Hammond said. Let's start with what you know about your Cylons, and we'll share what we know about the Goa'uld, because if both threats converge on this location, none of us are going anywhere. The two commanders moved toward Galactica's war room, two versions of humanity about to discover just how dangerous a multiverse could be. The war room aboard Galactica had seen countless tactical briefings, but never one quite like this. Two large screens dominated opposite walls, one displaying Dratus data from the colonial fleet, the other showing sensor feeds from Earth's orbital assets in something called a Prometheus-class battlecruiser. Commander Adama stood at the head of the table, flanked by President Roslin, Colonel Ty, and Apollo. Across from them sat General Hammond, Colonel O'Neill, Major Carter, Dr. Jackson, and the silent, imposing figure of Teal'c, whose golden symbol embedded in his forehead had caused considerable alarm until Jackson explained it was a remnant of enslavement, not a weapon. Let me see if I understand this correctly, Rosalind said, massaging her temples. You have a device, a Stargate, that creates artificial wormholes allowing instantaneous travel between planets across the galaxy. Thousands of planets, Daniel confirmed. The ancients built the network millions of years ago. When we discovered the gate in 1996, we opened Pandora's box. We found worlds seeded with human populations taken from Earth thousands of years ago by the Goa'uld as slave labor and host bodies. Host bodies? Ty's voice was sharp. Carter pulled up holographic images on her tablet, projecting them above the table. The Goa'uld are parasitic organisms, snake-like creatures that burrow into a human host and take complete control. They possess advanced technology scavenged from races they've conquered or enslaved. They style themselves as gods, Ra, Apophis, Baal, and use terror and religious fanaticism to maintain control over human populations. Starbuck, leaning against the bulkhead with arms crossed, let out a low whistle. So you've got body-snatching alien parasites pretending to be gods, and you're fighting them with one ship and a magic ring? We have allies, Teal'c said, his deep voice commanding attention. The Takra, Goa'uld, who oppose the System Lords. The Asgard, an ancient race of benevolent aliens. And Earth has developed weapons and shields based on ancient technology. Shields, Tyrol repeated, standing near the engineering console. Energy shields. We saw the schematics Carter shared. That's not possible with our technology. We use armor plating, compartmentalization, damage control. You're telling us you can just project an energy field that stops weapons fire? When they work, O'Neill muttered. Usually they fail at dramatically inconvenient moments. Hammond shot him a look. Commander Adama, what can you tell us about these Cylons? If they followed you through the anomaly, we need to know what we're facing. Adama pulled up tactical data on Galactica's display. Grainy images of Cylon raiders, base stars, and heavy raiders. The Cylons started as mechanical soldiers, bipedal robots with red scanning eyes. After the armistice, they evolved. When they returned, they brought new technology, organic-looking ships grown rather than built, fighters that operate without pilots, and something we didn't expect. He paused, the weight of betrayal still fresh. Human models, Cylons that look, think, and feel exactly like humans. 12 distinct models, each capable of downloading their consciousness into new bodies if killed. They're infiltrators, saboteurs, and true believers in their cause. The room fell silent. They look human? Daniel asked, his academic fascination warring with horror. Completely indistinguishable? Completely, Rosalind confirmed. We've had Cylon agents embedded in our fleet without our knowledge. They can love, hate, reproduce. Some don't even know they're Cylons until activated. It's the perfect infiltration strategy. Carter's face had gone pale. The consciousness download. That's not just data transfer, that's quantum state duplication. Do you have any idea how advanced that technology is? That's beyond ancient capabilities, beyond Asgard technology. That's genocide machinery, Adama interrupted coldly. That's what it is. They don't just kill you, they replace you. Your loved ones don't know they're sleeping next to the enemy until it's too late. O'Neill's expression had shifted from sardonic to deadly serious. Okay, new question. How do we detect these things? We can't, Apollo admitted. Not reliably. We've developed psychological screening, behavioral analysis, but the newer models are perfect copies. Some have false memories going back years. The only certain detection method is extreme radiation exposure. Briefly disrupts their biomechanical systems, but it's not practical for screening entire populations. Teal'c leaned forward. These Cylons possess faster-than-light travel technology. FTL jump drives, Tyrell explained. We can jump hundreds of light years in seconds, but it requires precise calculations. Jump too close to a gravity well and you tear the ship apart. Jump without proper cooldown and you damage the drive. It's powerful, but imperfect. Different from hyperspace, Carter mused. Your drives are manipulating space itself, folding it, rather than entering an alternate dimensional layer. That explains the anomaly signature we detected. When you jumped, you created a localized space-time distortion. Which means, Ty demanded, which means if the Cylons were tracking you and hit that same distortion within a certain time frame, they could have been pulled through after you, Carter concluded, like a wake in water. They wouldn't need your exact coordinates, just proximity to the anomaly before it collapsed. The implications spread through the room like a cold wind. How long? Adama asked quietly. Carter consulted her calculations. The anomaly was collapsing when we detected it. If they were close, already in pursuit, hours maybe. A day at most. Rosalind closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with renewed determination. General Hammond, we need to be honest with each other. We came here desperate, nearly out of fuel, low on ammunition with sick and dying civilians. We're barely combat effective. If the Cylons arrive in force, we can't defend this fleet and fight them off. And if the Goa'uld detect this situation, Hammond countered, they'll see it as an opportunity. A weakened Earth, unknown vessels, technology they can steal. We're already on multiple System Lords' target lists. So we're all fraked, Starbuck said bluntly. Not necessarily, Daniel interjected. He pulled up star charts showing the gate network. The Goa'uld don't know about you yet. Earth's orbital defense grid is hidden, cloaked. From space, we look primitive. If we move your fleet away from Earth orbit to a concealed location, we buy time to pool resources and develop a strategy. You want us to hide? Ty said, disgust in his voice. I want us to survive, Hammond replied firmly. Commander, I understand you've been running for months. Your people are exhausted, but if we panic, if we make hasty decisions, we hand victory to both our enemies. We need intelligence, coordination, and time. Adama studied the Earth General, seeing not just military command but genuine concern for human life, lives that weren't even his responsibility. You're offering asylum. Why? We're not your people. We're refugees from another reality. You could just let us jump away, make us someone else's problem. Hammond's eyes hardened with conviction. Commander, whether you're from this reality or another, you're human. You're fleeing genocide. And as long as I'm in command, Earth doesn't turn away people in need. He paused. Besides, you have something we desperately need. What's that? Combat experience, O'Neill answered. Real, sustained military conflict. You've been fighting for survival against an enemy that thinks and adapts. Most of our engagements are gate missions, small teams, quick strikes. We don't do fleet actions. You do. You've been doing it for 40 days straight. And you have resources we need, Adama admitted. Fuel, supplies, medical equipment, technology we can't comprehend. He looked at Rosalind, saw her slight nod of approval. General, if we're going to do this, if we're going to ally our forces, We need full disclosure. No secrets about capabilities, no holding back intel on either side. Agreed, Hammond said. Major Carter will coordinate with your chief to roll on technical specifications. Dr. Jackson will work with your historians and religious authorities. We need to understand how your people ended up in our reality. And Colonel O'Neill's team will run joint tactical exercises with your Viper squadrons. Oh, good, O'Neill deadpanned. More flying. My favorite thing that makes me want to throw up. Despite the tension, a few smiles cracked. Adama stood, and Hammond rose to meet him. They shook hands across the table, two commanders binding their fates together. We have a saying in the fleet, Adama said. So say we all. So say we all, Rosalind echoed, her voice carrying presidential authority. Hammond nodded. Then let's get to work. We've got a galaxy to save and not much time to do it. As the briefing dissolved into tactical planning, nobody noticed the Dratus contact flickering at the edge of sensor range, a signature that would, in 6 hours, resolve into something far worse than anyone imagined. The Tok'ra operative materialized in Stargate Command's gate room in a shimmer of Asgard transport beams, his sudden appearance triggering alarm klaxons until General Hammond's voice crackled over the intercom. Stand down. That's one of ours. Jacob Carter, Major Samantha Carter's father and host to the Tok'ra symbiote Selmak, strode through the Iris checkpoint with urgency written across his weathered features. His eyes flashed briefly with the golden glow of a Goa'uld symbiote, though the Tok'ra were anything but the tyrannical system lords. George, we have a problem, Jacob said, without preamble, as he entered the briefing room where SG-1 and the colonial delegation had reconvened. A big one. Anubis knows about your visitors? The room went cold. How? Hammond demanded. Subspace monitoring stations detected the spatial anomaly when it formed, Jacob explained, pulling up holographic displays from a Tok'ra data crystal. Anubis has been watching for unusual phenomena ever since he discovered that ancient knowledge database. He's convinced there are more ancient technologies hidden in dimensional pockets or parallel realities. When 193 ships suddenly appeared in Earth's orbit, he gestured helplessly. He thinks you found something. We didn't find anything, Adama said sharply. We jumped blind, running from... The Dratus console in Galactica's CIC, which had been patched into the SGC network, suddenly screamed an alert. Lieutenant Gaeta's voice burst through the comm. Commander, multiple contacts dropping out of FTL. Grid coordinates match Cylon Battlestar configuration. Every person in the room was moving instantly. Adama was through the door before anyone else processed the information. Hammond and O'Neill close behind. They hit Galactica's CIC at a run, finding controlled chaos as the crew scrambled to battle stations. Talk to me. Gaeta? Adama barked. 2 Battlestars, sir. Range, 4 million kilometers and closing. They're launching raiders, hundreds of them. Gaeta's fingers flew across his console. They're not alone. Detecting additional contacts. Unknown configuration. Massive energy signatures. On the tactical display, the situation crystallized into nightmare. 2 organic-looking Cylon base stars, each bristling with missile ports and fighter launch bays, had arrived exactly where Carter predicted. But they weren't alone. 3 massive pyramid-shaped vessels, unmistakably Goa'uld Hatak motherships, flanked the Cylon position. Oh, you have got to be kidding me, O'Neill breathed. Carter's voice came through on the emergency channel from Prometheus. Sir, those are Hataks, reading energy signatures consistent with Anubis's fleet configuration. They're powering weapons and shields. They're working together? Ty demanded, staring at the display in disbelief. The machines and these snakeheads? Cylons are opportunistic, Apollo said, already running for the hangar to scramble Viper squadrons. If they detected unknown vessels, they'd investigate any potential alliance. And Anubis would use anything to get ancient technology, Daniel added, studying the formations. If he thinks the Cylons have access to dimensional travel tech, he'd offer them Earth in exchange for the knowledge. Rosalind gripped the edge of the tactical table, her face pale but composed. Commander, we can't fight this. Not 5 capital ships with our ammunition reserves. We don't have a choice, Adama replied. If we run, they'll hunt the civilian ships. If we stay, we die fighting. Neither option is acceptable. He turned to Hammond. General, what can your Prometheus do? She's designed for hit-and-run attacks, not pitched battles, Hammond admitted. Asgard shields and weapons, but we're one ship against 5. We need backup. Then call your allies, Adama said firmly. We'll buy you the time. Commander, Rosalind began. Madam President, with respect, this is a military decision. Adama's voice carried the weight of 40 years of service. Galactica was built to fight. If we're going to die, we die protecting the fleet. That's our duty. Hammond locked eyes with Adama, seeing the same resolve that had kept the colonial fleet alive through impossible odds. Colonel O'Neill, contact the Asgard. Tell them we need their supreme commander and whatever fleet assets Thor can spare. Tell them it's a code red, Earth defense scenario. On it, O'Neill said, moving to the communications console. Major Carter, Hammond continued, bring Prometheus to attack position. Coordinate with Galactica's CAG for joint fighter operations. Sir, the F-302s aren't designed for prolonged combat against those numbers, Carter warned. Then we better make every shot count. Hammond turned to Jacob. Get the Tok'ra. We need intel on Anubis's fleet composition and any weaknesses we can exploit. Jacob nodded and moved away, already activating his Tok'ra communication device. On Dratus, the enemy formations were splitting. The 2 Cylon base stars accelerated toward the colonial fleet's civilian ships, while the 3 Hawks moved into position to engage Galactica and Prometheus. It was classic hammer and anvil tactics. Force the defenders to choose between protecting civilians or engaging the capital ships. Action stations, Adama ordered, his voice carrying throughout Galactica via the ship-wide intercom. All batteries ready main guns. Launch all Vipers. This is not a drill. Cylons have found us, and they brought friends. All hands, prepare for combat. The old Battlestar shuddered as her massive gun batteries swiveled into firing positions, decades of armor plating and redundant systems prepared for one more battle. In the hangar bays, Vipers launched in rapid succession. Starbuck leading the first squadron, her voice cutting through the wireless chatter with profanity-laced encouragement. Prometheus, sleek and advanced, moved into formation alongside the battle-scarred colonial warship. The contrast was striking. One vessel built from Goa'uld, Asgard, and human technology representing Earth's best hope for space superiority. The other, a relic from another reality, built for punishment and endurance. Galactica Actual, this is Prometheus, Colonel Ronson's voice came through clearly. We're reading extreme thermal buildup on those pyramid ships. They're charging weapons. Confirmed, Gata reported. Cylon base stars are launching nuclear missiles. Time to impact. 90 seconds. Adama's expression remained carved from stone. Batteries, stand by for point defense. All civilian ships execute emergency jump on my mark. Random coordinates, maximum range. Belay that order, Hammond said sharply. Adama turned, fire in his eyes, but Hammond continued quickly. If they jump scattered, we can't protect them when they re-emerge. The Goa'uld have hyperspace tracking. They'll hunt down individual ships. Then what do you suggest, General? We make a stand, Hammond said. Right here, right now. We show these bastards that this Earth, doesn't run. The Cylon raiders streaked across the tactical display like a swarm of metallic insects, each one piloted by a consciousness that could resurrect endlessly, fearless, because death was temporary. The Hawks opened fire first, golden energy beams lancing through space, each shot capable of vaporizing a frigate. Prometheus's shields flared blue as she absorbed the first volley, Asgard technology holding against Goa'uld fury. Galactica, with no shields to protect her, did what she'd always done. She took the hits. Armor plating vaporized, hull sections breached. Damage control teams scrambled as fire suppression systems activated automatically. But the old girl held, her redundant systems and compartmentalized design, exactly what she'd been built for. All batteries, Adama commanded, his voice steady as hell itself. Fire! Galactica's main guns thundered, kinetic rounds screaming across the void at relativistic velocities. No energy shields could stop solid matter moving at fractional light speed. The physics were simple and brutal. The lead Hawk's shields absorbed 3 rounds before the 4th punched through, smashing into the pyramid's flank and tearing through internal decks. The Goa'uld vessel reeled, secondary explosions blooming across its surface. "Target damaged," Gaeta shouted. "They're venting atmosphere." But the Cylons were closing on the civilian fleet, missiles tracking toward Colonial 1, Astral Queen, and dozens of defenseless refugee ships. In space, there was no sound. No thunder of guns, no screams of the dying. Just the cold mathematics of vectors, velocities, and the terrible calculus of survival. And for the Colonial fleet and Earth's defenders, the math was about to get much worse. Captain Kara Starbuck Thrace pushed her Viper into a punishing roll, missiles from 3 Cylon raiders screaming past her cockpit, close enough to register on her proximity alarms. The combat pattern was familiar. She'd been fighting toasters for 40 days straight, but the sheer numbers were overwhelming. "Apollo, I've got 8 on my 6, she barked into the wireless. "Could use some help here." "Negative, Starbuck," Captain Lee. "Apollo." Adama's voice came back strained. "I'm engaged with a dozen raiders trying to break through to the civilian ships. Hot Dog, Cat, converge on Starbuck's position." The Vipers were outmatched. For every raider they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. The Cylons could afford losses. Each destroyed fighter was just a temporary setback, the pilot consciousness downloading to the resurrection ship the moment its craft was destroyed. Then something screamed past Starbuck's Viper so fast she barely registered it. A sleek, wedge-shaped craft with blue engine wash and weapons that fired pure energy instead of bullets. "Galactica Actual, this is F-302 Alpha Leader." A confident female voice cut through the tactical channel. "We're engaging raiders in your defensive perimeter. Recommend your Vipers fall back to secondary positions and let us clear a path." "Who the hell is that?" Starbuck demanded. "Earth fighters," Apollo replied. "New players just entered the game." The F-302s moved like nothing Starbuck had ever seen, performing maneuvers that should have turned pilots into paste, firing weapons that punched through raider armor like it wasn't there. They weren't as numerous as the raiders, but they were faster, deadlier, and backed by technology that made Colonial Vipers look like antiques. Major Lorne twisted his F-302 through a corkscrew pattern, railguns tearing through a raider that had been pursuing a Viper. "Prometheus, Alpha Leader. These Cylon craft don't have shields and their armor is organic composite. Our railguns are cutting through them like paper." "Acknowledged." "Alpha Leader," Carter's voice came back from Prometheus's bridge. "Continue engaging raiders. Prometheus is moving to support Galactica against the Hawks." The massive Earth battlecruiser surged forward, Asgard shields shimmering under sustained Goa'uld fire. Her main weapons, reverse-engineered from Goa'uld staff cannons but enhanced with human engineering, returned fire with precision that spoke to advanced targeting systems. One Hawk, already damaged by Galactica's kinetic rounds, took 3 direct hits from Prometheus. Its shields collapsed, and the pyramid-shaped vessel began listing as internal explosions ripped through its superstructure. "Target destroyed," Carter reported. 2 Hawks remaining, but they're charging for another volley. On Galactica's CIC, the tactical picture was chaos. Dratus painted hundreds of contacts, raiders, Vipers, F-302s, missiles, and the capital ships exchanging fire at ranges measured in thousands of kilometers. Commander Adama watched the dance of death with the practiced eye of a warrior who'd commanded fleet actions for decades. "Gaeta, status on the civilian fleet?" "Colonial 1 and the primary vessels are holding position as ordered, sir. Damage reports coming in from 3 ships hit by stray fire. Astral Queen took a glancing blow from a Cylon missile. Casualties unknown." Ty gripped the railing, watching Galactica's armor take another hammering. "Bill, we can't take much more of this. Hull breaches on decks 7, 12, and 15. Fires in compartments throughout the ship. We're losing pressure in starboard sections." "Damage control is handling it," Adama replied, though his jaw was tight. "We've survived worse." "Have we?" Ty shot back. "We've never fought alongside people who can make shields out of thin air or shoot energy beams that can—" He stopped as a new contact appeared on Dratus. "What the hell is that?" A massive vessel materialized in the center of the combat zone, small by capital ship standards, but radiating power that made even the Hawks seem primitive. Its design was elegant, gray-white hull plating, forming a distinctive hammer-headed shape. Asgard vessel detected, Gata reported, voice tinged with awe. Reading energy signatures beyond our scale. They're hailing us. A voice came through the communications channel, high-pitched, clinical, but carrying absolute authority. This is Commander Thor of the Asgard fleet. We have detected hostile action against the Tauri homeworld. Analyzing threat composition, Goa'uld forces identified. Unknown organic vessels detected, establishing tactical parameters. Thor! O'Neill's voice burst through from SGC, pure relief evident. Buddy, great timing. We've got two types of bad guys here. Snakeheads and killer robots from another dimension. Any chance you brought friends? Negative, O'Neill. All available vessels are engaged in combat with the replicators in the Eta galaxy. I am alone. Thor's voice remained calm despite the odds. However, I have analyzed the Cylon vessel configurations. Their technology is sophisticated but vulnerable to concentrated energy weapons. Recommend coordinated assault on their base star command centers. One of the Cylon base stars, which had been maneuvering to launch another wave of raiders, suddenly shuddered as Thor's ship, the Daniel Jackson, opened fire. Asgard weapons refined over millennia of warfare struck with surgical precision. The organic hull of the base star split open, internal structures exposed to vacuum. Target compromised, Thor reported, transferring optimal targeting data to allied vessels. Carter's voice crackled through. Galactica, Prometheus. We're receiving targeting telemetry from Thor. These base stars have distributed neural networks. Hit these specific nodes and we can cascade fail their entire command structure. Adama didn't hesitate. All batteries, new targeting coordinates incoming. Concentrate fire on designated points. Let's see how these machines like fighting someone who understands their weaknesses. Galactica's guns swiveled to new headings. Firing solutions calculated by systems that combined colonial gunnery computers with real-time Asgard tactical data. The kinetic rounds, each weighing tons and moving at appreciable fractions of light speed, hammered into the base star's weak points with devastating effect. The Cylon ship's organic structure began collapsing in on itself, neural networks severed, command pathways disrupted. Raiders that had been operating in coordinated swarms suddenly flew erratically, their control link to the base star severed. It's working, Gata shouted. The raiders are losing cohesion. But the second base star, learning from its companion's destruction, began maneuvering away from the engagement zone. The remaining two Hawks, their shields battered but holding, moved to provide covering fire. They're retreating, Ty observed. Since when do toasters retreat? Since they realize they're outgunned, Apollo's voice came through the wireless. All Viper squadrons, form up on me. We're not letting them regroup. Negative, CAG, Adama countermanded. All Vipers return to Galactica. We need damage assessment and rearmament. Let Thor and Prometheus handle pursuit. Starbuck's protest was immediate. Commander, we've got them on the run. We can... That's an order, Captain. Adama's tone brooked no argument. We just survived the first engagement. Don't throw away our advantage by pursuing into unknown territory. The F-302s, with their superior range and speed, continued harrying the retreating Cylon base star while Thor's vessel and Prometheus maintained pursuit. The two Hawks jumped into hyperspace in flashes of blue-white energy, abandoning their Cylon allies without hesitation. Cowards, Teal'c observed from SGC's observation post. He'd been watching the battle unfold on tactical displays, his warrior's appreciation evident. The Goa'uld will always abandon those they deem weak. The remaining Cylon base star, hemorrhaging atmosphere and fighters, made a desperate jump. Its FTL drive flared with unstable energy signatures, and then it was gone. Not into hyperspace, but through the same kind of spatial distortion that had brought the colonial fleet to this reality. They're escaping back through the anomaly, Carter reported. Subspace readings indicate the dimensional rift is still partially open. If they make it through, they'll report our position to the rest of the Cylon fleet, Adama finished grimly. Which means we have hours, maybe days, before they return in force. The combat zone fell silent except for the scattered debris of destroyed raiders and the slow tumble of the wrecked Hatak. Colonial Vipers and F-302s formed up for landing approaches, pilots exhausted but alive. In Galactica's CIC, damage reports flooded in. 15 dead, 43 wounded, 6 decks compromised, ammunition reserves depleted by 30%. The ship had taken a beating, but she'd held. President Roslin's voice came through from Colonial 1. "Commander, casualties?" "Acceptable, Madam President," Adama replied, though each death weighed on him. "The fleet is intact. We survived." "Thanks to your new friends," Ty added grudgingly, watching as Thor's vessel took up station alongside Galactica. Hammond's voice joined the channel. "Commander Adama, President Roslin, that was one hell of a fight. Your people are damn fine warriors. But we need to talk about what happens next because this was just the opening round." Adama looked at the tactical display, at the mix of colonial and Earth vessels now occupying the same space, defended by the same courage. Two humanities, two fleets, bound now by shared combat and mutual survival. "Agreed, General," Adama said. "Let's finish this conversation before the next wave arrives." The engineering bay aboard Prometheus was a study in contrasts. Chief Galen Tyrol stood beside Major Samantha Carter, both examining holographic projections of their respective technologies with the focused intensity of experts recognizing both potential and problems. "Your FTL drive literally folds space," Carter said, manipulating the hologram to show Galactica's jump drive schematics that Tyrol had provided. "That's incredible. No dimensional shift, no alternate physics. You're just compressing the distance between 2 points. The energy requirements must be enormous." "Thallium-based reactor cores," Tyrol explained, gesturing to the fuel system diagrams. "It's refined from a mineral we mine, or use to mine, from our colonies. We're running critically low, maybe 3-4 jumps left for the entire fleet before we're dead in space." Carter's expression shifted to concern. "How long can thallium reserves last under normal operation? If we weren't jumping every few hours to escape Cylons? Years." Tyrol's frustration was evident. "But we've been running flat out since the attacks. Every system is pushed past rated capacity. Galactica's 40 years old. She was supposed to be a museum, not a combat vessel. Half my repairs are held together with spit and prayers." "What about your energy weapons? These," Carter indicated the point defense batteries. "They're all kinetic?" "Every shell, every round. We don't have directed energy weapons beyond small arms." Tyrol pulled up combat footage from the recent battle. "Your F-302s have some kind of energy-based rail system that punches through Raider armor like it's not even there. That's technology we abandoned centuries ago because we couldn't make it work reliably." "And your lack of shields," Carter pressed. "That's by design?" "That's by limitation," Tyrol corrected. "We theorized about energy deflection systems. But the power requirements exceed what our reactors can provide while maintaining propulsion and life support. So we went with layered armor, compartmentalization, redundant systems. Galactica can take hits that would cripple one of your Hatak vessels." "But she can't deflect them," Carter observed. "Chief, I want to propose something. What if we could integrate limited shield technology into Galactica's systems? Not full Asgard shields. Your power grid couldn't handle it. But localized defensive fields around critical sections. CIC, engineering, weapons batteries." Tyrol's skepticism was immediate. "Major, our systems are analog by design. After the first Cylon War, we stripped out all networked computers. Everything's manual, isolated, unhackable. Your shield technology would require computer systems that we specifically eliminated to prevent Cylon infiltration. What if I told you we have computer systems that can't be hacked by conventional means?" Carter pulled up specifications for Ancient-derived technology. The Ancients built systems with quantum encryption that even the Asgard have trouble breaking. If we retrofit Galactica with isolated, non-networked shield emitters controlled by ancient encrypted systems, the Cylons couldn't access them even if they boarded the ship. Tyrol studied the specifications, his engineer's mind racing through possibilities. "It would take weeks of retrofitting. We'd need to reinforce power conduits, install entirely new systems, train crews on technology they've never seen. We don't have weeks, Carter admitted, but we might have days. And Chief, if those Cylons come back with their full fleet, you're going to need every advantage we can give you. In Galactica's wardroom, a different kind of technical exchange was occurring. Dr. Daniel Jackson sat across from President Laura Roslin and a scholar named Gaius Balter, a man whose nervous energy and brilliant intellect made Daniel immediately cautious. The sacred scrolls describe 13 tribes, Roslin explained, her hands folded on the table. 12 settled the colonies we called home. The 13th, Earth, traveled far and was lost to legend. For thousands of years, we believed it was myth. Then the Cylons attacked, and the scrolls became our only hope. Daniel adjusted his glasses, comparing colonial scripture displayed on his laptop with ancient texts he'd studied for years. President Roslin, I need you to understand something. The Earth you're describing in your scriptures, it doesn't match our history. We have no record of colonial ships, no genetic evidence of off-world human populations originating from Earth. Our humanity evolved here, on this planet, over millions of years. Which suggests, Balter interjected, his accent clipped and precise, that we've encountered either a parallel dimension where human evolution occurred independently in multiple locations, or, he hesitated, fingers drumming nervously on the table, or our scriptures are describing a different Earth entirely, perhaps one that exists in our original reality. Parallel evolution is possible, Daniel conceded. We've encountered it before. Human populations seeded across the galaxy by the Goa'uld thousands of years ago. But your technology, your language, your cultural development, it's too similar to be coincidence, yet too different to be directly connected. Roslin leaned forward. Dr. Jackson, I'm a schoolteacher turned president because everyone above me in succession died in the attacks. I don't pretend to understand dimensional physics or parallel realities, but I know my people need hope. They believe Earth is our destiny. If this Earth isn't the one we sought, then we help you find the right one, Daniel interrupted gently. President Roslin, the Stargate network connects thousands of worlds. The ancients who built it had technology we're still trying to understand, including dimensional phase shifting. If your people came here through a spatial anomaly, there might be a way to find your original Earth. And if there isn't, Roslin's pragmatism cut through hope like a knife. Then we help you survive here, Daniel said firmly. Earth, this Earth, has faced extinction multiple times. We understand what it means to fight for survival. You're not alone anymore. Balter, who'd been silent during this exchange, suddenly spoke. There's another possibility neither of you are considering. His eyes held a distant, almost haunted quality. What if the Cylons following us here wasn't an accident? What if they were meant to find this reality? Meant by whom? Daniel asked. By something that sees patterns we don't, Balter replied cryptically. The Cylons believe in God, a singular, omnipotent deity guiding their actions. What if bringing two humanities together, two realities colliding, serves some larger purpose? The room fell uncomfortable. Daniel, who'd spent years studying religion across dozens of cultures, recognized theological philosophy when he heard it. Dr. Balter, are you suggesting divine intervention? I'm suggesting we're players in a game whose rules we don't understand, Balter clarified. And that terrifies me more than the Cylons or your Goa'uld combined. On the bridge of the Daniel Jackson, Commander Thor reviewed combat data with clinical precision. The Asgard commander's large gray-black eyes blinked slowly as he processed tactical information that would overwhelm human cognitive capacity. General Hammond, Thor's voice came through the communication channel to SGC. I have completed analysis of the Cylon technology. Their construction methods and design philosophy bear no resemblance to any known spacefaring civilization in this galaxy. However, their biomechanical integration suggests sophistication that rivals Asgard technology in specific applications. Specifically, Hammond prompted. Consciousness transfer, Thor replied. The ability to duplicate and transfer neural patterns across biological substrates is something we have theorized but never successfully implemented. The ethical implications alone have prevented serious research. The Cylons have perfected it. O'Neill, standing beside Hammond, grimaced. So these robots figured out how to become immortal by body hopping. Great! Just what we needed. Another unkillable enemy. Not unkillable, Colonel O'Neill, Thor corrected. Vulnerable. The resurrection technology requires a centralized hub, what Commander Adama refers to as a resurrection ship. Destroy that vessel, and the Cylons lose their ability to transfer consciousness. They become mortal. Can we detect these resurrection ships? Hammond asked. Negative. Their energy signatures are masked by sophisticated stealth technology. However, I have transmitted sensor data to the colonial fleet. Their Drata systems, while primitive, operate on different detection principles than our sensors. Combined analysis may yield results. On Galactica, Lieutenant Gaeta was already processing the Asgard data, comparing it with colonial detection logs from dozens of Cylon encounters. Commander, he called out, I think I found something. The Asgard sensors can't see the resurrection ship because it's cloaked against energy-based detection, but Dratus tracks mass displacement and gravitational anomalies. If we overlay their data with ours, the tactical display shifted, showing previous battle zones where invisible gravitational distortions had been dismissed as sensor glitches. But when combined with Asgard analysis, patterns emerged. There, Gaeta pointed. Every major engagement, there's been a mass shadow at extreme range. Too small to be a base star, too large to be a raider. We've been ignoring it because it didn't match known Cylon signatures. Adama studied the data with predatory focus. The resurrection ship. They've been shadowing our fleet, staying at maximum sensor range, recovering their dead. He turned to Ty. If we could destroy that ship, we make the toasters mortal, Ty finished. They'd have to start caring about losses, change their whole tactical approach. Or make them desperate, Adama countered. Desperate enemies make unpredictable choices, sometimes the most dangerous ones. A communication priority alert flashed on the console. Commander, it's Thor, Gaeta reported. He's detecting hyperspace windows opening. Multiple signatures, gold configuration. The tactical display updated. 5 Hatak vessels emerging from hyperspace, this time led by a massive flagship that dwarfed its escorts. The signature was unmistakable. Anubis, Teal'c's voice came through from SGC, recognition and hatred mixing in his tone. That is his flagship. And he's brought friends, O'Neill added. Carter, how many ships are we looking at? 5 Hataks plus flagship, Carter reported from Prometheus. We're outnumbered and outgunned. Thor's ship is powerful, but it's alone. Prometheus is damaged from the last engagement. Galactica's ammunition reserves are at 70%. Then we need a plan that doesn't rely on firepower, Hammond said. He looked at Adama on the visual feed connecting their command centers. Commander, your people specialize in asymmetric warfare, fighting enemies with superior numbers and technology. Suggestions? Adama's expression was grim but calculating. We do what we've always done, General. We make them fight on our terms, not theirs. And we hit them where they're vulnerable. Which is where? O'Neill asked. Everywhere, Adama replied. If we're doing this, we do it right. Combined fleet action. Colonial tactics, Earth technology, Asgard precision. We show these false gods and killer machines what happens when two humanities stand together. On the view screen, Anubis's flagship began broadcasting on all frequencies, a voice distorted by technology and arrogance. Humans of the Tauri, you harbor refugees who possess knowledge I require. Surrender them, and I will grant you swift deaths. Resist, and I will demonstrate why I am feared across this galaxy. The channel went silent. Then Adama's voice, steady as granite, replied, This is Commander William Adama of the Battlestar Galactica. We've been running from extinction for 40 days. We've lost everything. We have nothing left to fear from another tyrant with delusions of godhood. You want us? Come and take us. The gauntlet was thrown. Anubis's flagship, the Sovereign, was a monument to stolen power and ancient malice. Larger than any standard Hatak, its hull was reinforced with ancient technology scavenged from a dozen conquered worlds. On its bridge, a dark cathedral of pillars and hieroglyphic displays, Anubis himself sat upon an elevated throne, his form shrouded in black robes and energy that made him appear more specter than being. "They dare refuse me," Anubis said, his voice resonating with unnatural harmonics. "These refugees and their Tauri protectors think their primitive vessels can stand against a god." His first prime, a hulking Jaffa named Herrick, bowed deeply. "My lord, shall we deploy fighters and overwhelm their defenses?" "No." Anubis leaned forward, his concealed face studying the tactical displays showing Galactica, Prometheus, and Thor's vessel in defensive formation. "I want their technology intact. The spatial anomaly that brought these vessels here, that is ancient knowledge manifest. If they have devices capable of dimensional travel, I will possess them." He gestured dismissively. "Send boarding parties, take their ships, kill anyone who resists, but capture their leaders alive. I would know what secrets they carry." "As you command, my lord." Herrick straightened and began issuing orders. Throughout the Goa'uld fleet, Alkesh bombers and death gliders launched by the hundreds, forming attack waves designed to overwhelm point defense systems. Anubis watched the deployment with satisfaction. The Tauri had proven troublesome, yes. Their alliance with the Asgard had disrupted several campaigns, but they were still primitives playing with technologies they barely understood. This colonial fleet, however, they represented something unprecedented. Another reality, another dimension where humanity had evolved along different technological paths. The possibilities were intoxicating. "Incoming!" Gata's voice cut through Galactica's CIC. "Death gliders and bombercraft, estimated 400 plus. They're not engaging directly. Looks like they're trying to get close enough to deploy troops." Adama absorbed the tactical picture instantly. "They want to board us. Take the ships intact." He activated fleet-wide communications. "All civilian vessels execute emergency jump to coordinates Sierra 73, now." Throughout the colonial fleet, FTL drives spun up. One by one, civilian ships blinked out of existence, jumping to coordinates far enough from the battle to be safe, but close enough to return if needed. It was their practice survival protocol. Remove non-combatants from combat zones. Within 30 seconds, only military vessels remained, Galactica, and a handful of armed civilian craft that had volunteered for defense duties. "Civilian fleet is clear," Gata confirmed. "Good." Adama turned to Tai. "Saul, prepare boarding defense teams. Small arms, close quarters combat. If they get aboard, we make them bleed for every compartment," Tai finished. "Already on it." On Prometheus, Carter was coordinating with Thor's vessel and the remaining F-302 squadrons. "Thor, we need your targeting solutions. Those bombers have transport rings. If they get within range, they can beam Jaffa warriors directly onto our ships." "Affirmative, Major Carter," Thor replied. His vessel, the Daniel Jackson, began launching precise energy weapons that lanced through space with surgical accuracy. Each shot found a bomber, shields collapsing under Asgard firepower, hulls vaporizing in silent explosions. But there were too many. For every 10 Thor destroyed, 100 more pressed forward. "Prometheus actual to all F-302 wings," Colonel Ronson ordered. "Forget the fighters. Focus on those bombers. They're the real threat." Major Lorne rolled his F-302 into an attack run, railguns tearing through an Alkesh before it could deploy its cargo. "Multiple targets. Can't get them all. We need more ships." "Then we improvise," Apollo's voice cut in. The CAG had been monitoring Earth communications from his Viper, learning their tactical language. "All Viper squadrons form up on the F-302s. We fly escort, they handle the bombers. Let's see how these gold ships like fighting coordinated attacks." The Colonial Vipers, built for atmospheric and space combat, were more maneuverable than the F-302s, but less heavily armed. The combination, however, proved devastating. Vipers would harass and distract death gliders, while F-302s used their superior firepower to eliminate bombers. Starbuck dove through a formation of death gliders, leading them into the firing solution of 2 F-302s that shredded the Goa'uld craft. "I could get used to this," she called over the wireless. "These Earth jockeys aren't half bad." "High praise from you, Starbuck," Apollo replied dryly. Try not to get them killed showing off. But the numerical advantage was telling. 3 Al-Kesh bombers broke through the fighter screen, closing to transport range of Galactica. Incoming transport signatures, Geta warned. Deck 9, Deck 12, and Hangar Bay 2. Throughout Galactica, klaxons blared as armored Jaffa warriors materialized in rings of light, staff weapons charged and ready. The first wave numbered 30. Trained soldiers in elite armor, fanatically loyal to their god. They encountered colonial marines who'd been fighting Cylon Centurions in close quarters for 40 days. The firefight was brutal and immediate. Staff weapon blasts met rifle fire in corridors too narrow for formations. Colonial marines used tactics learned from urban combat on Caprica. Controlled bursts, room clearing, grenades in enclosed spaces. The Jaffa, expecting terrified primitives, found hardened veterans who gave no ground. Sergeant Hadrian led his fire team through Deck 12, clearing compartments with practiced efficiency. Contact left, suppressing fire. His squad laid down overlapping fields of fire that forced the Jaffa into cover. Grenades out. The explosions in the enclosed corridor were devastating. When the smoke cleared, 5 Jaffa lay dead or dying, their armor no match for fragmentation at close range. But more were coming. Anubis's fleet was deploying wave after wave, testing defenses, probing for weaknesses. On Prometheus's bridge, alarms screamed as Jaffa appeared in engineering. Security teams to engineering, Ronson ordered. Seal that section. Don't let them reach the hyperdrive. SG-1, stationed on Prometheus for exactly this contingency, was already moving. O'Neill led the way, P-90 chattering as he engaged the first group of Jaffa. Daniel, left side. Teal'c, you've got point. Teal'c, armed with a staff weapon he knew intimately from years of service to Apophis, moved with lethal precision. He'd fought alongside these warriors once. Now he killed them without hesitation, each shot placed with the expertise of a former First Prime. They're trying to sabotage the Naquata reactor, Carter shouted, analyzing the Jaffa movements. If they overload it, yeah, big boom, we all die, O'Neill finished. Teal'c, keep them away from that console. The battle throughout both ships was chaos incarnate. Dozens of individual firefights, each one potentially decisive. Colonial Marines fought with desperation and skill. Earth forces fought with superior weapons and tactical experience against these specific enemies. But Anubis had unlimited reinforcements. On Galactica's CIC, Adama watched damage reports pile up. We can't hold them forever. They'll wear us down through attrition. Then we don't fight defensively, Ty said, an idea forming. Bill, what if we took the fight to them? Boarding a Goa'uld vessel? Adama's eyebrow raised. Why not? They're sending troops here. Their ships are designed for ground assault, not repelling boarders from space. Ty pulled up schematics of Hatak vessels that SGC had provided. These pyramid ships have known vulnerabilities. Engine rooms, Peltac command centers. We send a strike team, Colonial Marines and SG personnel, via their own transport rings. Hit them where they're not expecting it. Adama considered it for 3 seconds. Do it. Coordinate with General Hammond. Within minutes, the plan was disseminated. Colonial Raptors, small craft capable of FTL jumps, would micro-jump into point-blank range of a Hatak, deploy Marines via captured transport technology, and jump out before being destroyed. It was insane. It was desperate. It was exactly the kind of plan that had kept the colonial fleet alive this long. All Raptor crews, this is Galactica Actual, Adama broadcasted. You're cleared for Operation Trojan Horse. Jump in, deploy teams, jump out. You've got 30 seconds max before those Hataks vaporize you. Good hunting. The first Raptor, piloted by Lieutenant Sharon Boomer Valeri, spooled its FTL drive. Aboard were 12 Colonial Marines and 4 SGC personnel led by Major Paul Davis, all armed with a mix of colonial rifles and earth weapons. Everyone hold on, Boomer called back to the cargo bay. This is going to be a rough insertion. The Raptor vanished in a flash of light and reappeared 200 meters from a Hatak's hull, close enough that the Goa'uld shields couldn't track the small craft. Boomer activated the captured transport rings mounted in the cargo bay. White light enveloped the strike team. When it cleared, They were standing in a Hatak engine room, surrounded by startled Jaffa engineers. The firefight lasted seconds. Marines dropped into combat positions instantly, trained reflexes taking over. The Jaffa, caught completely off guard, fell before they could raise weapons. "Secure the room," Davis ordered. "Plant the charges. We've got 20 seconds before reinforcements arrive." Colonial explosive charges, simple but effective, were magnetically attached to the Naquata reactor's cooling system. The team didn't need to destroy the ship, just disable it long enough for the battle to shift. "Charges set. Exfil now." Davis triggered his radio. "Boomer, we need pickup." The transport rings activated, pulling the team back to the Raptor in pulses of light. Boomer didn't wait for confirmation. She jumped, the Raptor vanishing milliseconds before staff cannon fire would have vaporized it. 10 seconds later, the Hatak's engines exploded from within. The massive pyramid ship listed, power failing, shields collapsing. "Target disabled," Gata reported from Galactica, reading cascading failures through their power grid. Thor's vessel immediately capitalized, pouring concentrated fire into the crippled Hatak. The Goa'uld ship broke apart, secondary explosions tearing through compartments as atmosphere vented into space. "One down," O'Neill's voice came through from Prometheus, satisfaction evident despite the ongoing firefight in engineering. "4 to go plus the big guy." But Anubis had seen enough. On the Sovereign's bridge, he rose from his throne, energy crackling around his shrouded form. "Enough games," Anubis declared. "Activate the weapon." The flagship's bow began to glow with building power, not standard Goa'uld weaponry, but something else. Ancient technology, corrupted and weaponized. "What is that?" Carter's voice held genuine fear. "Those energy readings are off the scale. That's ancient drone weapon signatures." Thor's clinical voice confirmed her worst fears. "Anubis has obtained ancient weapon technology. That is an energy weapon capable of penetrating Asgard shields. All vessels. Evasive maneuvers immediately." The weapon fired. A lance of pure white energy that crossed the distance in an eye blink. It struck Galactica amidships. The impact was like nothing Galactica had ever endured. Ancient energy, designed to penetrate shields and vaporize matter at the molecular level, tore through 40-year-old armor plating as if it didn't exist. Entire sections of the starboard hull simply ceased to be, atomized in an instant. Commander Adama was thrown against the CIC railing as the ship lurched violently. Emergency lighting kicked in as primary power fluctuated. Klaxons screamed warnings about hull breaches, fires, and casualties that numbered in the dozens within seconds. "Damage report," Adama demanded, pulling himself upright. Gata's hands flew across his console, his voice strained. "Decks 14 through 17. Starboard sections, gone, sir. Just gone. We've lost 30% of our starboard batteries. Casualty reports coming in from all affected areas. Fires on multiple decks. FTL drive offline. Chief Tyrol says the power surge fried primary systems. Can we jump? Not without repairs that'll take hours we don't have." Ty gripped the tactical display, blood running down his face from a cut above his eye. "Bill, we can't take another hit like that. The ship will break apart." Adama stared at the tactical screen, watching the Sovereign's weapon array beginning to charge again. The ancient weapon's power requirements meant a cooldown between shots, but that cooldown was measured in minutes, not hours. They had maybe 3 minutes before Anubis fired again. 3 minutes to save his ship and everyone aboard. "All power to engines," Adama ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Put us between that flagship and the civilian fleet coordinates. If he fires again, he goes through us first." "Commander." Rosalind's voice came through from Colonial 1, which had jumped back into the combat zone against all tactical sense. "Don't sacrifice Galactica for—" "Madam President, with respect, this is a military decision," Adama interrupted. "Galactica was built to take damage. We're the only ship that can survive long enough to give everyone else time to escape." On Prometheus, Carter was running calculations with desperate speed. That ancient weapon, it's drawing power from the Hatak's reactor grid. If we could overload that grid, force a feedback loop, the weapon would backfire, Thor finished, understanding immediately. Major Carter, your proposal has merit. However, penetrating the Sovereign's shields to reach its power core would require firepower we do not possess. Unless we got inside the shields, O'Neill said, the plan forming even as he spoke. Beam a nuke directly into their power core. No shields, no warning. Just one big badaboom. Colonel, we don't have Asgard transport capability on Prometheus, Carter reminded him. And Thor's ship can't beam through Goa'uld shields any better than we can. But I can jump through them, a new voice interjected. Everyone turned to the communication channel that had just activated. Boomer's voice from her Raptor, still running combat insertions. Lieutenant Valeri, Adama said carefully, what are you proposing? Sir, I can micro-jump into the Sovereign's hangar bay. Same tactic we used on the Hawtox. But instead of deploying Marines, we deploy a warhead. I program it for remote detonation, jump out, and someone blows it from a safe distance. You'd have to jump to within meters of their hull, Apollo's voice cut in, horror and pride mixing. Boomer, the margin for error is 0. You'd be jumping blind into an active combat zone. I've made harder jumps running from Cylons, Boomer replied, with false confidence. Besides, what's our alternative? Let that monster vaporize Galactica piece by piece? Adama looked at Ty, saw the same calculation in his XO's eyes. They were out of options and nearly out of time. Do it, Adama ordered. Chief Tyrol, get our largest warhead to Lieutenant Valeri's Raptor. Colonel O'Neill, coordinate with her on detonation timing. On it, O'Neill acknowledged. Boomer, we'll slave the detonator to Prometheus's systems. You drop the package, get clear, and we'll light the candle from here. In Galactica's hangar bay, Chief Tyrol and his deck crew were already loading a nuclear warhead, one of the fleet's precious few remaining, into Boomer's Raptor. The young pilot stood beside her ship, checking pre-flight systems with hands that only trembled slightly. Starbuck appeared beside her, flight suit still scorched from the recent dogfight. You don't have to do this alone. I'll fly escort. In what? Your Viper can't jump. Then I'll fly alongside until you do. Starbuck's grin was fierce and slightly manic. Someone's got to make sure you don't frack this up. Boomer managed a weak smile. Thanks, Kara. Don't mention it. Just get back alive so I can call you an idiot for volunteering for suicide missions. 2 minutes until the Sovereign's weapon recharged. Boomer's Raptor launched, Starbuck's Viper flying close formation. They wove through debris and combat, dodging Death Glider fire and the ongoing battle between Vipers, F-302s, and Goa'uld craft. Coordinates locked, Boomer reported, her voice tight with concentration. Jumping in 3, 2, 1. The Raptor vanished. It reappeared inside the Sovereign's cavernous hangar bay, materializing between 2 parked Alkesh bombers. Jaffa warriors scattered in confusion at the sudden appearance of an unknown craft. Boomer didn't wait. She triggered the cargo bay doors, and the nuclear warhead rolled out onto the hangar deck, its magnetic clamps anchoring it to the metal plating. Package delivered, Boomer shouted. Jumping now. Staff weapon fire converged on the Raptor as Jaffa realized what was happening. Energy blasts scorched the hull, one punching through the cockpit canopy and missing Boomer's head by inches. The FTL drive spun up. Too slowly, always too slowly when death was seconds away. Then space folded and the Raptor was gone. It reappeared near Galactica, trailing smoke and venting atmosphere. Boomer fought the controls as her wounded ship tumbled. I'm hit. FTL drive is fried, maneuvering thrusters not responding. Apollo's Viper was already moving, matching velocities with the tumbling Raptor. Galactica, emergency recovery on Boomer's bird. She's dead stick. Landing bay, prepare crash recovery, Adama ordered. Then, to Prometheus. Colonel O'Neill, the package is in place. Do you have detonation capability? Carter's voice came back. Confirmed. Remote detonator is active. Recommend all ships move to maximum safe distance. This is going to be big. All vessels, pull back to coordinates Echo 4, Hammond ordered over the fleet channel. Thor, can your shields protect nearby ships from the blast? Negative, General Hammond, Thor replied. An explosion of that magnitude within the Sovereign's reactor core will create a chain reaction equivalent to a supernova. All vessels must retreat beyond 5,000 kilometers. The Colonial and Earth ships began accelerating away from the Sovereign. The Goa'uld flagship, unaware of the weapon now sitting in its hangar, continued charging its ancient energy cannon. 1 minute until the weapon fired. "Major Carter, do it," Hammond said quietly. Carter's finger hovered over the detonation control. Detonating in 3, 2, 1, mark. Inside the Sovereign's hangar, the nuclear warhead exploded with the force of 300 megatons. The blast vaporized everything within 100 meters instantly, then punched through internal bulkheads like tissue paper. The expanding fireball reached the ship's Naquadah reactor cores, and then physics took over. Naquadah, the exotic element that powered Goa'uld technology, was incredibly energy-dense. When destabilized, it released that energy in ways that made nuclear weapons look gentle. The Sovereign's multiple reactor cores, all interconnected for maximum power distribution, went critical simultaneously. The flagship didn't just explode, it tore itself apart from within. The ancient weapon, still charging, backfed catastrophically as power systems overloaded. Energy designed to pierce shields and vaporize ships instead erupted backward through the Sovereign's own structure. Anubis, on his command throne, had one moment to comprehend his defeat before reality itself seemed to fracture around him. The ancient energy weapon, the stolen technology he'd been so proud of, consumed his ship in white fire that burned away matter and energy alike. The shockwave was visible even without sensors, a sphere of destruction expanding at relativistic speeds. "Brace for impact," someone shouted across all channels. The wave hit Galactica like the fist of an angry god. Even at 5,000 kilometers, the energy release was enough to buffet the old Battlestar, sending her tumbling. Emergency systems strained to compensate. Prometheus, with her Asgard shields, weathered the blast better but still registered damage across multiple systems. Thor's vessel, the most advanced ship present, used its shields to deflect the worst of the shockwave away from the more vulnerable Earth and colonial ships. When the glare faded and sensors recalibrated, the Sovereign was simply gone. In its place was an expanding debris field and radiation signatures that would persist for decades. The remaining 3 Hawtaks, suddenly leaderless and facing enemies who'd just killed a god, made immediate calculations. Their shields were battered, their forces depleted, and Anubis, the being they'd followed out of fear and ambition, was dead. They jumped into hyperspace without ceremony, abandoning the battle. The combat zone fell silent, except for the crackle of fires being suppressed and the hiss of atmosphere leaking from damaged hulls. "Status report," Adama said into the quiet. Gaida's voice was shaky with exhaustion and disbelief. "Enemy forces have retreated. Dratus shows no hostile contacts. We won, sir." Cheers erupted throughout Galactica's CIC, tired voices raised in victory despite the cost. Colonial Marines, bloodied and exhausted, embraced each other. On Prometheus, the bridge crew allowed themselves smiles of relief. "Galactica, this is Prometheus," Hammond's voice came through, warm with respect. "Hell of a fight, Commander. Your people are extraordinary." "Couldn't have done it without yours, General," Adama replied. He looked around his battered CIC at the damage report still coming in, at the casualty lists that would haunt his dreams. 73 dead, over 100 wounded. Galactica herself would need weeks of repairs. But they'd survived. Against Cylons and Goa'uld both, 2 humanities had stood together and won. "All ships," Adama broadcast to both Colonial and Earth forces. "Well done. Take 12 hours for damage control and casualty recovery. Then we need to talk about what comes next." Because as devastating as this victory was, everyone knew the truth. This was only the beginning. The conference room aboard Prometheus had been hastily converted into a war council. Present in person or via holographic link were the key leaders of both humanities: Commander Adama, President Roslin, and Colonel Ty from the Colonial Fleet. General Hammond, Colonel O'Neill, Major Carter, Dr. Jackson, and Teal'c from Stargate Command, and Commander Thor via holographic projection from his vessel. The room smelled of recycled air, coffee, and the peculiar ozone scent that accompanied Asgard technology. Charts and tactical displays covered every available surface, showing damage assessments, casualty reports, and the strategic nightmare they all faced. Let's start with the bad news, Hammond began, his voice carrying the weight of command. Anubis is dead, but his death creates a power vacuum. Every system lord in the galaxy will be scrambling to claim his territories, his technology, and his resources. Some will see Earth as vulnerable after this battle. We can expect increased Goa'uld activity within weeks. And the Cylons? Rosalind asked, her hands folded on the table. Despite her fatigue, her presidential composure remained intact. That's the worst news, Carter said, pulling up sensor logs. We tracked the base star that escaped through the spatial anomaly. The rift is collapsing, but it's not fully closed. Our analysis suggests it's stabilizing into something more permanent, a bridge between our reality and theirs. Adama's jaw tightened, which means the Cylons can use it to bring their entire fleet through. How many ships are we talking about? O'Neill asked. At the time of the attacks on the colonies, Cylon forces numbered in the hundreds of base stars, Ty replied grimly. Each base star carries approximately 250 raiders, plus heavy raiders for boarding operations. They can build more ships, grow them like organisms. And they have the resurrection technology. Every pilot, every Centurion soldier can download and return to fight again. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. That is a fleet capable of conquering this galaxy, Teal'c observed. The Goa'uld are fractured, competing amongst themselves. The Tok'ra are too few. Even the Asgard are occupied with the replicator threat in Ida Galaxy. If the Cylons arrive in force, they'll roll over everything, O'Neill finished. Great, just great. We went from killer robots from another dimension to killer robots from another dimension who want to bring their friends. There's another factor, Daniel interjected, pulling up research he'd been conducting. I've been studying Cylon theology based on information from the colonial archives. They believe in a single god who guided them to sentience and gave them purpose. Their entire war against humanity is religiously motivated. They see themselves as the righteous inheritors of creation, chosen to replace their flawed creators. Zealots, Hammond said. The worst kind of enemy. Zealots with superior numbers, resurrection technology, and now access to a galaxy full of resources, Rosalind added. General Hammond, I appreciate everything Earth has done for us. You've saved us, fought alongside us, bled with us. But I have to ask the question, are we bringing you a threat you can't survive? The blunt honesty silenced the room. Hammond met Rosalind's eyes steadily. Madam President, Earth has faced extinction before. The Goa'uld, the replicators, the Ori. We're still here because we don't give up and we don't abandon allies. Your fleet didn't bring the Cylons to us. A spatial anomaly did. But now that we know about them, we can't pretend they don't exist. General Hammond speaks wisdom, Thor's synthesized voice interjected. The Cylon threat represents a danger not merely to Earth or the colonial fleet, but to all sentient life in this galaxy. The Asgard High Council has authorized me to remain in this system and provide military support for the duration of this crisis. We appreciate that, Thor, O'Neill said. But even with your ship, we're looking at impossible odds. What we need is a way to close that dimensional rift permanently. Cut the Cylons off before they can invade. Carter shook her head. Sir, the energy requirements to seal a dimensional bridge of that magnitude exceed anything we can generate. We'd need ancient technology, the kind we don't have access to. What about the weapon that was on Anubis's ship? Adama asked. You said it was ancient technology. Could we use it? Destroyed when the Sovereign exploded, Carter replied. And even if we could recover it, we don't have the knowledge to modify it for dimensional manipulation. That's beyond even Asgard capabilities. Then we need someone who understands ancient technology better than anyone, Daniel said slowly, an idea forming. Someone who's interfaced with ancient knowledge directly. All eyes turned to him. Daniel, no, O'Neill said immediately, recognizing where this was going. The last time you downloaded ancient knowledge into your brain, you almost died. We're not doing that again. Jack, we might not have a choice, Daniel argued. The ancients built the Stargate network. They understood dimensional physics in ways we can't even comprehend. If I could access that knowledge again, you'd burn out your brain in days, Carter interrupted. The human mind isn't designed to hold that much information. It's a death sentence. Only if we can't remove the knowledge afterward, Daniel countered. Last time we didn't have Asgard medical technology or access to Thor's research. Maybe this time. There is an alternative, Thor said, his large eyes blinking slowly. The Asgard possessed genetic memory passed down through generations. I have studied ancient technology extensively. If we could combine my knowledge with human intuition and creativity, we might devise a solution without risking Dr. Jackson's life. How? Hammond asked. A neural interface, Carter said, understanding immediately. Link Thor's computer systems with a human operator. The Asgard provides the technical knowledge. The human provides the creative problem-solving. It's been theorized but never tested. Why not? Rosalind asked. Because linking alien and human neural patterns is dangerous, Carter admitted. The cognitive dissonance alone could cause permanent brain damage, and there's no guarantee the interface would even work. I'll do it, a voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Chief Galen Tyrrell standing there, having apparently been listening from the corridor. Chief? Adama questioned. Sir, I've been working with Major Carter on integrating our technologies. I understand colonial systems better than anyone, and I've been learning Asgard engineering principles. If someone needs to interface with Thor's systems to find a solution, it should be someone who thinks in terms of both technological paradigms. Chief Tyrrell, Thor said, the risk is considerable. Neural interface with Asgard systems has never been attempted with a human. The cognitive strain is probably less than what we'll face if 100 Cylon base stars come through that rift, Tyrrell interrupted. Commander, I'm volunteering. Let me do this. Adama studied his chief engineer, seeing the determination and the fear. Chief, you have a team that depends on you. Galactica depends on you. And Galactica won't survive if the Cylons invade, Tyrrell replied. Sir, I've lost my home, my friends, everything I knew. If I can help close that rift and keep the Cylons from destroying another civilization, then that's a price I'm willing to pay. The room was silent for a long moment. If we're doing this, Hammond said finally, we do it right. Full medical monitoring, safety protocols, and we abort at the first sign of neural damage. Agreed, Thor said. I will prepare the interface technology. Chief Tyrrell, you should rest and prepare mentally. The neural connection will be intense. As the meeting broke up, Adama pulled Tyrrell aside. Chief, you don't have to do this. We'll find another way. With respect, sir, we both know there isn't another way. Tyrrell managed a tired smile. Besides, this is what I do. Fix things. And right now, the thing that needs fixing is a hole in reality that leads to our extinction. 6 hours later, in a medical bay aboard Prometheus that had been converted into a laboratory, Chief Tyrrell lay on a specialized bed surrounded by monitoring equipment. Asgard neural interface technology, crystalline structures, and organic-looking cables connected to his temples via adhesive nodes. Carter monitored readings while Thor's hologram observed from beside the bed. Dr. Janet Fraser, SGC's chief medical officer, stood ready with emergency intervention protocols. Chief, you'll experience significant cognitive dissonance when the link activates, Thor warned. Your consciousness will be sharing mental space with Asgard thought patterns. It will be disorienting. I'm ready, Tyrrell said, though his hands gripped the bed's edges tightly. Initiating neural link, Carter said, activating the interface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Tyrrell's eyes widened, pupils dilating as alien knowledge flooded his consciousness. He gasped, back arching, every muscle going rigid. Neural activity spiking, Fraser called out. He's experiencing massive cognitive overload. Maintain the connection, Thor instructed. His mind is adapting. Give him time. Inside Tyrrell's consciousness, reality fractured into 1,000 dimensions simultaneously. He saw the universe as the Asgard saw it. Quantum probabilities, dimensional mathematics, the underlying code of reality itself. Information that should have been incomprehensible suddenly made perfect, terrible sense. The spatial rift. He could see it now, truly see it. A wound in the fabric of space-time, bleeding energy between realities. It was stabilizing because both universes were trying to heal it, but the healing process was creating a permanent bridge instead of closure. To close it, they'd need to destabilize both sides simultaneously. Collapse the bridge from both ends before the universes could compensate. But that would require technology positioned on both sides of the rift. Someone would have to go through to the other side, back to the Cylon-controlled reality, and activate a device while someone on this side did the same. It would be a one-way trip. Whoever went through would be trapped when the rift collapsed. Tyrol's eyes snapped open, the Asgard knowledge still flooding his mind, but now filtered through human consciousness. "I know how to close it," he said, his voice strained. "But someone's going to have to stay behind." The plan was insane, desperate, and represented the only viable path forward. In the 12 hours since Chief Tyrol's neural interface session, teams from both the Colonial Fleet and Stargate Command had worked around the clock to build two devices based on the specifications he'd provided. Specifications that came from Asgard, understanding filtered through human engineering. The devices, christened rift collapsers, for lack of a better term, were elegant in theory and brutally simple in practice. Each one would generate a localized space-time disruption field at opposite ends of the dimensional bridge. When activated simultaneously, they would destabilize the quantum foam holding the rift open, causing it to collapse catastrophically. The problem was timing. The devices had to be activated within 0.03 seconds of each other across dimensional boundaries where normal communication was impossible. Which meant one team would have to jump through the rift, position their device, and activate it based on precise timing alone, trusting that the team on this side would do the same. There would be no second chances, no do-overs, and whoever went through wouldn't be coming back. Now, in Galactica's hangar bay, the volunteer team prepared for a mission that everyone knew was suicide. Commander Adama stood before them, a mixed group of Colonial Marines and SG personnel, 20 soldiers who'd stepped forward without hesitation when the call went out. At their head stood Colonel Jack O'Neill and Captain Lee Apollo Adama, two leaders from different worlds united by the same stubborn refusal to let others fight their battles. "You don't have to do this," Adama said, his voice carrying the weight of every command decision he'd ever made. "Any of you. We could send automated systems, Raptors, on autopilot, which the Cylons would detect and destroy before we could activate the device," O'Neill interrupted. "Commander, we've been over this. This mission needs people who can adapt, think on their feet, and fight their way through whatever's waiting on the other side. That's us." Apollo stood beside O'Neill, his Viper pilot swagger replaced by grim determination. "Besides, Dad, sorry, Commander, someone needs to make sure these Earth types don't get lost without colonial guidance." A few chuckles rippled through the assembled soldiers, tension breaking slightly. Starbuck pushed through the crowd, her flight suit already prepped. "And someone needs to make sure Apollo doesn't do anything stupid heroic that gets everyone killed unnecessarily." "I'm coming too." "Kara, no," Apollo began. "Kara, yes," she shot back. "You're taking a Raptor through that rift into Cylon-controlled space. You need the best pilot in the fleet, and that's me. This isn't up for debate." Adama looked at his son, at Starbuck, at O'Neill, and the assembled volunteers. He saw determination, fear, courage, and the kind of selfless sacrifice that defined the best of humanity, both versions of it. "Very well," he said quietly. Then, louder, "You have your orders. Jump through the rift, deploy the device at the specified coordinates, and activate it on the mark. You'll have approximately 90 seconds from activation before the rift collapses. That's your window for getting clear," O'Neill finished. "We know, if we're not through before the window closes, we're stuck there. Honestly, it's not the worst place I've been stranded." "Colonel O'Neill," General Hammond's voice came through the communication system from SGC, "you have the thanks of this command and this planet. All of you do. May God be with you." President Roslin's hologram appeared, transmitted from Colonial 1. "Captain Adama, Lieutenant Thrace, Marines, you carry the hopes of 49,000 souls with you. Whatever happens, know that the Colonial Fleet will never forget what you're about to do." The Raptor that would carry them through, piloted by Starbuck with Apollo as Eco, sat ready on the launch deck. It had been retrofitted with the Rift Collapser, Asgard sensors, and enough ammunition and supplies to fight their way through whatever waited on the other side. As the team boarded, Adama pulled Apollo aside for a private moment. "Lee," he said, using his son's first name, something he rarely did in professional settings. "I've asked you to do a lot of things, dangerous things, but never anything like this." "I know what I'm doing, Dad," Apollo replied, "and I know why. The Cylons took everything from us, our worlds, our families, billions of lives. If I can prevent them from doing that to another civilization, another Earth, then that's worth it." Adama pulled his son into a brief, fierce embrace. "You're a better man than I ever was. I'm proud of you." "I learned from the best." Apollo pulled back, managing a smile. "See you on the other side, one way or another." The team boarded. The Raptor's engines spun up. Starbuck's voice crackled over the wireless. "Galactica, this is Raptor 312. We are ready for jump insertion." "Gods watch over you, 312, Adama replied, his voice steady despite everything. "Launch when ready." The Raptor lifted off, maneuvering through the launch tube and into space. Through the viewport, Starbuck could see both fleets, Colonial and Earth ships positioned around the shimmering spatial anomaly that marked the rift between realities. "Everyone strapped in back there?" she called to the cargo bay. "Because this jump is going to be rougher than anything we've done before." "Just fly the damn ship, Starbuck," O'Neill called back. "We're as ready as we're going to be." Starbuck's hands danced across the FTL controls, inputting coordinates that Thor had provided. Mathematical expressions that described locations in terms of dimensional boundaries rather than standard space. "Jumping in 3, 2, 1. The Raptor vanished. For a moment between moments, the team experienced what it meant to transit between realities. Space twisted. Time became nonlinear. They existed in multiple places simultaneously, their quantum states uncertain, until observation collapsed the waveform. Then they were through. The Raptor materialized in space that felt wrong, subtly different in ways the human mind could sense, but not articulate. The stars were in different positions. The background radiation had a different frequency. Even the quantum vacuum fluctuations operated on slightly shifted parameters. And waiting for them, as they'd feared, was a Cylon welcoming committee. "Dratus contact," Apollo called from the ECO station. "One base star, multiple raiders launching. They were expecting us." "Of course they were," O'Neill muttered, checking his P90. The escaped base star told them about the rift. "They've been guarding it." Starbuck threw the Raptor into evasive maneuvers as raiders converged. "We've got maybe 2 minutes before they overrun us. Where's our deployment point?" 3,000 kilometers spinward, Apollo read from the Asgard navigation data. "But we'll never make it through that intercept pattern." Then the universe bent, and Thor's vessel, the Daniel Jackson, materialized beside them. The Asgard ship had followed them through the rift, appearing like a guardian angel with weapons already firing. "Commander Thor to Raptor 312, the Asgard's voice came through with his usual clinical calm. "I am providing cover fire. Proceed to deployment coordinates. I will engage the base star." "Thor, you beautiful gray bastard," O'Neill shouted. "Thought we were doing this alone." "The Asgard do not abandon allies, Colonel O'Neill. However, I can only maintain position in this reality for 4.3 minutes before my ship's dimensional field destabilizes. You have that long to complete your mission." Starbuck didn't waste breath on thanks. She pushed the Raptor to maximum acceleration, racing past raiders that Thor's weapons reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Behind them, the Daniel Jackson engaged the Cylon base star in a duel of technologies from different realities. "Approaching deployment coordinates," Apollo called. "Starbuck, get us close to that debris field. We need cover for deployment." The Raptor dove into the wreckage of some ancient battle, destroyed ships from the colonial fleet's original reality, hulks that had been floating here for months. Starbuck matched velocity with a dead Battlestar's hull and positioned the Raptor for device deployment. In the cargo bay, the team moved with practiced efficiency. The rift collapser, looking like an elaborate crystalline sculpture surrounded by colonial technology, was magnetically anchored to the hull of the derelict. "Device positioned," one of the Marines reported, initializing activation sequence. "Thor, we're in position," O'Neill called. "How long until—" The base star is launching nuclear weapons, Thor interrupted. Impact in 37 seconds. I am attempting to intercept, but their numerical advantage is overwhelming. Colonel O'Neill, you must activate the device immediately. On the other side of the rift, aboard Prometheus, Major Carter stood before the second rift collapser, with her finger on the activation control. 30 seconds to synchronized activation, she announced. All ships, pull back to minimum safe distance. The colonial fleet and Earth vessels began retreating from the rift. The spatial anomaly shimmered, its edges already destabilizing from the device, warming up on the other side. In the Raptor, Apollo's hands flew across the activation controls. Device is hot, activating in 10, 9, 8. Raiders swarmed around them, overwhelming even Thor's defensive fire. Energy blasts scored the Raptor's hull. Warning lights blazed across Starbuck's console. We're not going to make it, she said quietly, a statement of fact rather than fear. Apollo looked at her, then at his father's image on the communication screen. Commander Adama watching from Galactica's CIC, helpless to intervene. Dad, Apollo said calmly, tell Mom I love her, and take care of the fleet. Lee, no, Adama began. 3, 2, 1, mark. Apollo slammed the activation control. On Prometheus, Carter activated the second device at precisely the same moment. The rift screamed. Reality itself protested as space-time was forced to collapse against its natural healing processes. The dimensional bridge that had connected two universes began tearing itself apart, quantum foam boiling away, fundamental forces canceling each other in ways that violated every conservation law. All ships emergency retreat, Hammond ordered. Get as far from that rift as... The collapse accelerated exponentially. The shimmering anomaly contracted from kilometers wide to meters in seconds. Energy discharged in all directions, not explosive force, but raw dimensional distortion that made ships' hulls phase in and out of reality. Through the narrowing gap, they could see the Raptor, Thor's ship, the Cylon base star, all caught in the collapse zone. Thor's vessel, built for dimensional travel, managed to jump back through at the last possible moment, emerging battered but intact on Earth's side. The Raptor tried to follow. It was too slow. The last thing they saw through the closing rift was Starbuck at the controls, fighting the helm with every skill she possessed, Apollo beside her coordinating their final desperate jump, and O'Neill in the cargo bay giving a sardonic salute to the cameras. Then the rift sealed. The spatial anomaly vanished as if it had never existed. Space-time healed, the wound between realities sutured shut by forces beyond comprehension. Sensors confirmed what everyone could see. The dimensional bridge was gone. And so was the Raptor. In Galactica's CIC, Commander William Adama stared at the empty space where his son had been. His hands gripped the railing with enough force to make his knuckles white, but his face remained carved from stone. The face of a commander who'd lost count of how many people he'd sent to their deaths. Sir, Gata said softly, the rift is completely collapsed. Sensors show no residual dimensional instability. It worked. Worked. They'd saved both realities from Cylon invasion. Cut off the enemy's access to unlimited reinforcements and resources. Prevented a war that could have consumed entire galaxies. The price was 20 brave souls trapped in a reality controlled by machines that wanted humanity extinct. President Roslin's voice came through, thick with grief. Commander, we should inform the families. Stand by, Madam President, Adama said, his voice barely recognizable. He activated fleet-wide communications. All ships, this is Galactica Actual. The mission was successful. The rift has been sealed. The Cylon threat to this reality has been eliminated. He paused, forcing words through a throat that felt like iron. 20 volunteers gave their lives to make this possible. Their names will be remembered. Their sacrifice will not be forgotten. So, say we all. Throughout both fleets, voices echoed the ritual response. So say we all. In the weeks that followed, the Colonial Fleet and Earth's Stargate Command forged an alliance that would reshape both civilizations. Chief Tyrell recovered from his neural interface session, though he reported occasional dreams in Asgard mathematical notation. Galactica underwent repairs using a combination of colonial and Earth technology, emerging stronger than she'd been in decades. The 49,000 survivors of the 12 colonies were offered sanctuary on Earth and her allied worlds, not the Earth of prophecy, but an Earth that had proven itself worthy of the name through courage and sacrifice. Some accepted, eager to finally stop running. Others chose to remain with the fleet, continuing the search for their prophesied home among the stars this reality had to offer. Commander Adama stood in his quarters one night, holding a photograph of Apollo taken during happier times. The ache of loss was a physical weight, but alongside it was something else: pride. His son had made the choice that defined the best of humanity, both versions of it. He'd sacrificed himself so that others might live. Through the viewport, Earth hung against the stars, blue, green, impossibly alive. Not the Earth they'd sought, but perhaps the Earth they'd needed to find. A chime at his hatch. "Enter." General Hammond stepped through, 2 glasses and a bottle in hand. "Thought you could use some company, Commander." They drank in silence. 2 old warriors who'd seen too much death and carried too many ghosts. But they drank to victory, to survival, and to the 20 souls who'd bought both with their lives. In another reality, on the other side of a dimensional barrier that would never open again, a damaged raptor drifted through space. Its crew was trapped, hunted, facing impossible odds against an enemy that outnumbered them thousands to one. But they had supplies, weapons, determination, and the knowledge that they'd saved 2 realities from destruction. If they were going to die in this universe, they'd die fighting, and they'd make the Cylons pay for every single day they survived. Because that's what humans did, regardless of which reality they came from. They endured. They fought. They never gave up. And sometimes, against all odds, they won.